Shalom, Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushua B'Katham to the brothers. Shalom, Yahweh Shema Alathon Ba'Hashem Yahushua to the sisters. We're the Israelites. We are the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under command of Yahana. We are not affiliated with any other Israelite group nor any other Christian organization. All right. So tonight's class is the history class, and we're going to go into the book of Judges. And we're going to stop at a certain point because next week, well, it really depends if we get to it. But the book of Judges is a very good book to understand where we can learn from the book of Judges. Like the Lord says, the things that are written aforetime were for our learning. You can find that in Romans. And when you go into the book of Judges, the book of Judges is a very good book to learn from and to understand why we need to serve the Lord and to properly serve the Most High in the way the Lord is supposed to be served. Like that's something that we have to pay very close attention to. Like that's why history is so important when it comes to these scriptures. That's why history is so important when it comes to the Bible, because we can learn. We learn from the things that are written aforetime, so we don't make the same mistakes. The problem that we have in Israel, we kept making the same mistake over and over and over again and not realizing that because we are not serving the Lord is the reason why we live in the most terrible, harsh conditions ever. Like the reason why we're suffering in America is because we don't know our history. The reason why we live in the most harsh conditions in America and in the ghettos, like in Chicago, in Flint, in Newark, in Queens, in Harlem, in Atlanta, in Orlando, in Tampa. The reason why we live in the most harshest conditions in all the cities that we live in all the towns that we live in all the neighborhoods that we live in, is because we don't realize how important it is to understand our history. If we went into the Bible and learned our history, we would realize the things that we're doing are the sins against the Lord and going against the Most High, and that's the reason why we're suffering. If we went into the Bible and looked at the history and realized that these things that were written aforetime were for our learning, we would understand and see the mistakes that we made in the past and not make those same mistakes again. Does everybody kind of understand where I'm getting at? So that's why the book of Judges, we're going to be in the book of Judges maybe for the next, I'm going to say probably this week and next week as well. Very good book to learn from. Very important history. Some things are just self-explanatory, but we're going to go ahead, all right? We're going to go ahead and start reading and getting into it. If you guys have any questions before I start the lesson too, before we get into it, if anyone has any questions, put it into the live chat and I will answer the question, all right? So if you guys have any questions about the scripture, whatever the case may be, you can put it into the live chat, all right? I'll answer that question as well. But let's get it. So Judges chapter 1 verse 1. It says, now after the death of Joshua, it came to pass. So this is during the time after the death of Joshua. So this is after Joshua This is after we came into the land and went to war with the majority of the people that were living in the land, and now we're in the land of Canaan, and we're now about to start, and then we started establishing the land. This is also during the time when we're establishing the land of Israel. Like we're starting to put our laws into place. All right, our laws, we're starting to establish ourselves and place our laws and put our laws into place, I should say, for the nation of Israel, which are the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans that we know today, to follow and to live by these laws in the land that the Lord gave us as a possession, as an inheritance. So it says, now after the death of Joshua, it came to pass that the children of Israel asked the Most High, saying, who shall go up for us against the Canaanites first to fight against them? So now this is after Joshua. Now remember, they're asking the Lord this reason because Joshua was a military general over Israel, and he was a very good warrior, and he led the Israelites. He led so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans in many victories against the people in the land of Canaan already. So after his death, they're asking, oh, who's going to be in charge of us? Like, who's going to properly lead us into the fight after the Canaanites? Like the Israelites always asked the Lord about a leader or a deliverer being over them. Like the Israelites always dealt. The Israelites never voted for their leaders or voted for someone to save them. Like that was never the case. Like we have to put that in perspective. The reason why blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are in those voting lines today because we are trying to vote our salvation. We're trying to vote for our salvation. You cannot vote for your salvation. Like the Lord is against us voting for our salvation. We cannot vote Democrat nor vote Republican for our salvation. It's not going to work that way. But your Christian pastors and your bishops and your ministers and your deacons talk about salvation all day. And they talk about salvation all through the week. Maybe just on Sundays. I'm not sure. I'm no longer in the church. But they sure as hell talk about salvation this and salvation that. But then they tell you go out and vote. Some say go vote Democrat. Some say go vote Republican. The majority of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are Democratic. So they will tell you, the majority will tell you to vote Democrat. But voting Democrat isn't going to save us. Voting Democrat isn't going to give us the salvation that we need from the dangers that we're living in the black, Hispanic, and Native American community. So when it says in Joshua chapter 1 verse 1 that the children of Israel asked the Lord, saying, who shall go up for us against the Canaanites first to fight against them, because they're asking for a leader, because this is after Joshua. Who's going to do it next? Verse 2, and the Most High said, Judah shall go up. So now the Most High said, Judah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand. So now this is Judah. Now, this is not talking about the tribe of Judah specifically. This is another brother named Judah, all right, in the Bible. So this is another brother. So the Lord said Judah. So after Joshua, now Judah is leading Israel into war, into battle, right? And the Most High said, this is verse 2, and the Lord said, Judah shall go up. So now Judah is going to be after Joshua. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand. So I delivered Judah into his hand. And Judah said unto Simeon, his brother. So now it's saying, now Judah said unto Simeon, his brother. Now this is how you know it's not talking about, now come up with me into my lot, that we will fight against the Canaanites, and I will go with thee into thy lot. So Simeon with him. So now Judah and Simeon, his brother, came up with me into my lot, that we may fight against the Canaanites. So now Judah and Simeon, now they're about to go fight against the Canaanites. So Judah went to his brother Simeon and said, guess you're going to come with me, and we're going to fight against the Canaanites. And I likewise will go with thee into thy lot. So Simeon went with him. So the same way that you're going to come with me to fight, I'm also going to come with you and fight. Verse 4. And Judah went up, and the Most High delivered the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand. So Judah went up, and the Most High delivered the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand. And they slew of them in Bezek 10,000 men. So Judah and Simeon, when they went up, the Lord delivered the Canaanites, and they were able to slay, I should say, 10,000 men. When the Lord is with you, the Lord is going to be with you. Like this. Now remember, the key word here is that the Lord delivered the Canaanites. If the Lord isn't with you, the Canaanites we would have never been able to beat the Canaanites. We would have never been able to have the upper hand against the Canaanites. That's why it's so important to serve the Lord. The reason why Joshua was able to conquer so much of the land of Canaan and win the wars that Joshua was fighting is because Joshua served the Lord. And the nation of Israel was also serving the Lord alongside Joshua. And the Lord was with Joshua. And because the Lord was with Joshua and everyone was serving the Lord was with all of Israel. So we have to put that in perspective. Let's learn from that. Let's learn from this. Let's learn from our history. Let's learn from the things that are written aforetime is for our learning. It's very important for us to understand this, to excel, and to be prosperous in the Black, Hispanic, and Native American community is by serving the Most High and serving the Lord. Verse 5, and they found Adoni-Bezek in Bezek, and they fought against him, and they slew the Canaanites and the Perizzites. So they found Adoni-Bezek in Bezek, and they fought against him, and they slew in the Canaanites and the Perizzites. So they found Adoni-Bezek in Bezek, and they fought against him, and they won. Verse 6, but Adoni-Bezek fled, and they pursued after him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and his great toes. So now time out. Now time out. Real quick. 1 second, Salaki. So now let's run that back. Real quick, let's run that back. Let's run that back because we gotta understand, as Israelites, we hardcore and we gangster. We don't play around with things. Like the Christians do not read these scriptures like this. Like no one wants to realize how ruthless we are as a people, man. Like we are gangster. We are no one to mess with. We're not soft. We're not weak. We ain't taking no BS. None of that. Like let's read that scripture one more time. It says, but Adoni-Bezek fled, meaning he flew. He was running for his life. And they pursued after him. So Judah and Simeon and the brothers that they went to war with, they pursued after this man. They said, you're not getting away. This is it. Like, you are not getting away. And caught him. So they caught this man. They caught Adoni-Bezek. And cut off his thumbs. So when they caught him, they cut off his thumbs. Now that's deep. That's real. You understand that, right? He cut off his thumbs and his great toes. It didn't say he slew him yet, but he cut off his thumbs and his great toes. Israel, we weren't playing around. No games were being played in the book of Joshua, and no games were being played in the book of Judges. We were not messing around. When it came to these scriptures, when it came to the Bible, when it came to our land, when it came to serving the Lord, we did whatever the Lord said for us to do. We weren't playing no games. If the Lord was with us, the Lord was with us. We were a force to be reckoned with. Like in the book of Joshua, before Judges, the people in the land of Canaan were already like, hey, we heard what you did to the Amorites and all these other, in all these wars. We don't want none of that. We good. We straight. This is why. Because once we catch you, that's it. That's a wrap. Verse 7. And Adoni-Bezek said, 80, and Adoni-Bezek said, so this is what, now these words are coming from Adoni-Bezek, said, 80 kings, having their thumbs and their great toes cut off, gathered their meat under my table. And I have done, so God hath requited me. And they brought him to Jerusalem, and there he died. So, and Adoni-Bezek said, 80 kings, meaning, so you had 80, meaning 30 and 10 kings. So 80 kings, so 40 kings, having their thumbs and their great toes cut off. So 40 of these kings got their thumbs and their toes cut off, gathered their meat under my table. So they gathered their meat under his table. Meaning their meat, meaning what they eat, what they use to survive, their resources. as I have done under my table. As I have done, so God hath requited me. And they brought him to Jerusalem, and there he died. So when they brought him back, to Jerusalem, that's where Adoni-Bezek died. Verse 8. Now the children of Judah had fought against Jerusalem, and had taken it, and smitten it with the edge of the sword, and set the city on fire. So now the children of Judah. Now this is talking about the Judites now. Now the children of Judah, was the Judites, right, had fought against Jerusalem. So whoever was inhabiting to the land of the people in the land of Canaan, whoever was inhabiting the city of Jerusalem at that time, the city of Judah, now the children of Judah had fought against Jerusalem, meaning whoever was in that city of Jerusalem, right, Judah fought against them and had taken it. So we've taken the city and smitten it with the edge of the sword. So we smitten that city at the edge of the sword. Salaki warrior, go ahead, go get away from that display. So now, and smiting it with the sword. So Judah came in, and it was game time, and smiting the city of Jerusalem. So we took Jerusalem and set the city on fire. Meaning we set that city on fire. We just destroyed the city, because we're going to build that back up, because now it's going to be our city next, right? Like this is how we got the land of Canaan. It wasn't by magic, right? It wasn't by magic. It wasn't by wishing on stars. It wasn't just saying glory, hallelujah, thank you Jesus, I'm covered by the blood of God, all this other stuff. We didn't get Jerusalem this way. We didn't get the land of Israel this way. We went to war to get the land of Canaan, because this was the land that the Lord promised us. This was the land that the Lord promised us as a possession and an inheritance. Like the Lord always wanted so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans to be in control and to have power and have authority over all the nations on the earth. Specifically, it started off having authority and power over the nations or in the land of Canaan. That's why we went to war in the land of Canaan with the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Hivites, the Hittites, and all of them. We went to war with them. The Canaanites, we went to war with them, because this land was, we're supposed to rule over it. The Lord said, and remember, the Lord said this in Deuteronomy chapter 7. Right? We have to understand this. The Lord said this in Deuteronomy chapter 7 and down, that He chose us to be a special people. And He wanted us to kick them out, because this is the land that I promised you. So you need to get going. You need to put an egg in your shoe and beat it. We good. We need you to get out. And if you don't get out, we going to war with you. Some nations understood that and said, hey, yo, we good. We want no problems with you. We good. We'll serve you. You straight. We got you with this. What I mean by we'll serve you, as in, hey, don't kill us. We good. Keep my family safe. I don't know about them other people. They want to fight. We already seen what y'all was capable of. We straight. We good. We all right. We don't need these problems. You know what I'm saying? I understand y'all got boots and braids, and you got boots and braids and beards in the lobby waiting for us. We good. You know what I'm saying? So now let's get it. And let's go to verse 9. And afterward, the children of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites that dwelt in the mountain and in the south and in the valley. So afterward, the children of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites. Right? They went to go fight against the Canaanites that dwelt in the mountain and in the south and in the valley. So this is war after war after war, fight after fight after fight, like over and over and over and over again. Right? This is happening over and over and over again. All right, 1 second. So like 1 second. Hello. Yeah, I'm coming. So now let's get back to it. Salaki about that. So now let's get to it. So now, Salaki. So now this is war after war after war. We hands down in it. Alright, we hands down in it. Let's go Salaki. Now we're in verse 9. So verse 10, and Judah went against the Canaanites that dwelt in Hebron. So now Judah went against the Canaanites that dwelt in Hebron. Now the name of Hebron before was Kirjatharba. So Kirjatharba was the name of Hebron. So now the name of Hebron before was Kirjatharba. Right? And they slew Sheshai and Ahiman and Talamai. Verse 11. So now, before Hebron, so this lets you guys know historically, Hebron, before it was called Hebron, it was called Kirjatharba. It's like it, Kirjatharba. Alright? Verse 11. And from thence he went against the inhabitants of Debir. And the name of the beer before was Kirjathar Sephar. It's like it. Kirjath Sepher. It's like it. So Kirjathar, it's like Kirjath, it's like Kirjath Sepher. Kirjath Sepher was the name of the beer. So before it was called the beer, it was Kirjath Sepher. Verse 12. And Caleb said, he that smiteth Kirjath Sepher and taketh it, to him will I give as Aksah my daughter to wife. So this is Caleb. So I don't know if you guys know who Caleb is. I believe he's another Judite. But let me get that for you real quick. So now this is Caleb saying that whoever takes down all right, so now Caleb, now this is Caleb. Now Caleb was also, I believe, in Joshua. He was one of the spies that Joshua sent out. So Caleb is one of the spies that Joshua sent out. So now Caleb, he's up there pretty much. He worked directly with Joshua, right, which was the son of Jephunneh, which is one of the Judites, I want to say. I believe it's one of the Judites. But now Caleb was one of the spies for sure. So Caleb was one of the spies that went into the land of Canaan and spied out for Joshua. So Caleb was high there in the ranking system, right, when it came to the land, when it came to taking our inheritance and the possession that the Lord promised us in the land of Canaan. So now Caleb is saying right here, Caleb said, he that smiteth Kirjath Sepher and taketh it, to him will I give Aksah my daughter to wife. So whoever takes this down, I'm going to give you my daughter to wife. So he's giving the brothers, or whoever's in charge, some incentive to, hey, take this land, my brother. Go ahead and get out there, do your work, do what you got to do. This is of the Lord, and if you do it, I'm going to give you my daughter to wife. Verse 12, and verse 13, and Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, took it. So now, Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, took it and he gave him as Kyle his daughter to wife. So now he said, hey, all right, verse 12. And it came to pass, when she came to him, that she moved him to ask of her father a field. And she lighted from off her ass, and Caleb said unto her, what wilt thou? So it came to pass when she came to him, and she moved him to ask of her father a field. So he said, hey, I want a field, I want a land, right? Give me off, so like, and she lighted from off her ass, so she went off of her donkey, right? And Caleb said unto her, so now Caleb was talking to her, what wilt thou? Verse 15, and she said unto him, give me a blessing, for thou hast given me a south land. Give me also springs of water. And Caleb gave her the upper springs and the nether springs. So by giving her the upper springs, and also giving her the springs of water and the upper springs and the nether in the nether springs, was also giving her whoever her husband was. Verse 16. And the children of the Kenite, Moses, Salaki. Verse 16, verse 16, and the children of the Kenite, Moses, father-in-law. Also, I want to let you know when it says, if you guys have any questions, any questions at all, Bubba Prashad, put it into the live chat, by the way. So if you guys have any questions at all, make sure you guys put it into the live chat. All right, make sure you guys put it into the live chat. All right, we're at verse. 1 second. All right, so now here we go. Now we're at verse 16. And the children of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up out of the city of palm trees with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which lieth in south of Arad. And they went and dwelt among the people. So the children of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law. Now remember, Moses' father-in-law, his father-in-law was another nation of people, went up out of the city of palm trees with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which lieth in the south of Arad, and they went and dwelt among the people. Verse 17, and Judah went with Simeon his brother, and they slew the Canaanites that inhabited Zephath, and utterly destroyed it, and the name of the city was called Hormah. So now after that, Judah went with Simeon his brother, and they slew the Canaanites that inhabited Zephath, and utterly destroyed it, and the name of the city was called Hormah. So this entire time in the beginning of Judges, it was war after war after war, fight after fight after fight. Like when it came to Israel, that's why the Lord said, I am a man of war. Like it's very evident why the Lord used those words. Like the Lord was a man of war. And so the nation of Israel, we were like a nation of warriors. We were a nation of soldiers. We were a nation that was constantly fighting. Like we got the land of Canaan, and we got the land of Israel, which is now the land of Israel, by going to war and fighting off these other nations. Verse 18, and Judah took Gaza with the coast thereof, and Ascalon with the coast thereof, and Ekron with the coast thereof. Verse 19, and the Most High was with Judah, and he drave out the inhabitants of the mountain, but could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. So now, the Lord was with Judah, and he was able to drive out the inhabitants of the mountain. So they were able to drive out the inhabitants. Whoever was there, they were able to drive them out. So whoever was living and dwelling in the mountains at that time, Judah, the Lord was with Judah, and they were able to drive them out. but could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. So we were not equipped at that time, right, to drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. Now remember, keep this into your memory, that there was a people living in the valley with chariots of iron, because this will come up again. Verse 20, and they gave Hebron unto Caleb, as Moses said, and expelled thence the sons of Anak. Verse 21, and the children of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites that inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem unto this day. So, now remember, the Lord gave an order to drive out these other nations. So Judah with Simeon, they did their part. They drove out what they had to drive out. But right here, the children of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites that inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem unto this day. Verse 22, in the house of Joseph, they also went up against Bethel, and the Lord was with them. Verse 23, and the house of Joseph sent to describe Bethel. Now the name of the city before was Luz. So before Bethel before the city of Bethel, right? Before the city was named Bethel, it was Luz. All right, it was Luz. Verse 24, and the spies saw a man come forth out of the city, and they said unto him, show us, we pray thee, that entrance into the city, and we will show thee mercy. So the spies saw the man come forth out of the city, and they said unto him, show us, we pray thee, and entrance into the city, and we will show thee mercy. So if you do this, we're going to show you mercy. Verse 26, and the man went into the land of the Hittites, and built a city, and called the name thereof Luz, which is the name thereof unto this day. So the man went into the land of the Hittites. So he went into the land of the Hittites, and built a city, and called the name thereof Luz, which is the name of thereof unto this day. So now Luz is no longer Bethel. Where Bethel was, that's where Luz was. But now Luz is somewhere different now. It was in the land of the Hittites. Verse 27. Neither did Manasseh drive out the inhabitants of Bashan and her towns, nor Ta'anak and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Dor and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Abilene and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Megiddo and her towns, but the Canaanites would dwell in that land. So now the tribe of Manasseh didn't do what the Lord said to drive out these nations. We were supposed to drive out these nations. All right? This is during the book of Judges. Right? This is a little bit after Joshua, after the death of Joshua. We were supposed to drive these nations out. So now you have two of us. It was Benjamin, and now we have Manasseh that didn't do their part and didn't drive out these nations. So now the Canaanites are still there, and some of the Jebusites are still there. And it came to pass, when Israel was strong, that they put the Canaanites to tribute, and did not utterly drive them out. Now, does anybody know what it means to put someone to tribute? Meaning they put the Canaanites as in a servile position, all right, giving tribute. And it came to pass when Israel was strong, meaning when Israel was strong, and when Israel was in power, when Israel had authority, that they put the Canaanites to tribute. They put the Canaanites to tribute, meaning in a servile position, and did not utterly drive them out. So they didn't drive them out, but they were in a servile position and gave tribute to Israel. Verse 29. Neither did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites that dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwelt in Gezer among them. So now neither did Ephraim. So now Ephraim didn't even do it. Now there's Canaanites still living in Gezer. Verse 30. Neither did Zebulun drive out the inhabitants of Kiran, nor the inhabitants of Nahalol. But the Canaanites dwelt among them and became tributaries. So now neither did Ephraim drive them out, but they also became tributaries, meaning in a servile position. Now when you pay tribute to like a people, because remember, this is when we were strong, we were in power, we were in authority. So we were not they were just giving us tribute like a tax, because we were still the authority of that land. They're the second class citizens here. Even though the Lord did tell us to drive them out, but because we didn't drive them out, they were still the second class citizens within our land. Right? But we're going to get more into it. Verse 31. Neither did Asher drive out the inhabitants of Acho, nor the inhabitants of Zidon, nor of Alah, nor of Akzib, nor of Helbah, nor of Aphik, nor of Rahab. Verse 32, but the Azarites dwelt among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, for they did not drive them out. So now also, Asher did the very same thing. They didn't drive out the Canaanites that were living in that land, and the inhabitants that were living in those cities and those towns. And now the Canaanites are also living among them. Verse 33. Neither did Naphtali drive out the inhabitants of Bethshemesh, nor the inhabitants of Bethanath, but he dwelt among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land. Nevertheless, the inhabitants of Bethshemesh and of Bethanath became tributaries unto them. So now the Canaanites were also living in that land too, and they also became tributaries to Naphtali. Now remember, we were still supposed to drive these nations out. We were supposed to drive the Perizzites, the Perizzites, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Canaanites. We were supposed to drive them out of the land of Canaan, because this land was going to become ours, and we were going to be the authority of the land of Canaan. We were once strangers in the land of Canaan, but this has always been the land that our ancestors have living in. But our God and our power made a decision that we were going to be the main authority in the power within that land. And it was given since Abraham, this was the land promised to us for a possession and an inheritance. Remember that. Verse 34. And the Amorites forced the children of Dan into the mountains, for they would not suffer them to come down to the valley. So now the children of Dan, I should say, this was one of the tribes of Israel until later, and I'll go over that history real briefly, where Dan no longer became a tribe and fell amongst the ranks of the tribe of Joseph, which is Ephraim and Manasseh. All right. And that's how we became the 12 tribes of Israel still. There were still 12, because Joseph was at one point in time one tribe. It just included Ephraim and Manasseh, but that was still one tribe. And then one point in time it was Dan, and now it's the 12th tribe. But because Dan fell short and didn't have enough men, right? Well, like I should say, not enough daughters, right? And make more of the tribe of Dan, they fell amongst the I just like I had that backwards. Enough men to produce more brothers and sisters. They fell amongst the ranks, and they pretty much went into Ephraim and Manasseh, and you still have 12 tribes. All right. Verse 36. It's like verse 35. But the Amorites would dwell in Mount Heres, and Aljalon, and in Zaabalim, Sha'albim. Yet the hand of the house of Joseph prevailed, so that they become tributaries. So now, even though, once again, Joseph prevailed, right? They were still, some of the Amorites would still dwell in that land. The Amorites would still dwell in that land, but became tributaries to Joseph. Verse 36. And the coast of the Amorites was from the going up to Akrabim, it's like an Akrabim, from the rock and upward. So the coast of the Amorites was from the going up to Akrabim, from the rock and upward. So that's where they dwelt. And they became tributaries to Joseph, meaning they became in a servile position, in a second-class citizenship within the land that the Lord gave to us as an inheritance or a possession. But now remember, we still were supposed to push these nations out of the land. That was an order from the Lord. We were supposed to drive these nations out, but we did not drive these nations out, and that's a problem. Let's go to Judges chapter 2. Now, if anybody has any questions, just let me know. Now, remember, this was war after war after war, battle after battle after battle. We were conquering these cities, putting them on fire, building them back up. Like this was what Joshua in Judges was about. Establishing the land of Israel through battle, through war, through fighting. That's why the Lord said, I'm a man of war. The Lord said, I'm a man of war. Because that's how the land of Israel was established, by warfare, by battling, by fighting. That's how the land of Israel was established. This land was given to our forefathers as an inheritance. Like we were always living in the land of Canaan. The Lord even said we were strangers in the land of Canaan. But the Lord made a decision and chose us to be the ruling class above all the people on the earth and in that land. That's why we went to war with in the land of Canaan, and we established our cities, our towns, and our neighborhoods, and became the ruling class, and became the superior class. And everyone else would be considered second-class citizens within our country, within our nation, under our kingdom, under our rulership. But we were still supposed to drive these other nations out. We were still supposed to drive these other nations out of this land. The Lord ordered us to drive these other nations out of the land. We were supposed to do that from the beginning. But we didn't do so. And because of doing so, it actually caused a lot of problems in the long run. By not driving out these other nations. Like the Lord wanted us to drive these other nations out of our land because he wanted us to be separate to begin with. So the Lord even gave us an order to drive out these other nations so we can be separate from these other nations. So we can live in our own cities, in our own town, in our own neighborhoods, in our own communities, in our own land. And be the ruling authority and the ruling class over all the earth. Like that's what that was the Lord's decision. That wasn't our decision. That was the Lord's decision. The Lord made that decision for all Israel to be the ruling class of people on the earth and to be the main power and authority over the earth. Like the Lord said that the Lord made the decision that we were going to be the wisest nation on the earth based off of the laws, statutes, and commandments that he gave us. We didn't make that decision. We didn't take it upon ourselves. This is what the Lord said. This is what our power said from the very beginning, since our forefather Abraham. So we're just doing what the Lord wanted us to do. We didn't just come in the land of Canaan and just start mobbing on folks for no reason. This was of the Lord. And some of the other nations in the land of Canaan understood that too. The Lord, and don't get it twisted, this is how you know we didn't just come in there mobbing on ourselves, because even some of the nations that lived in the land already knew, like, hey, we already knew this was going to be your land. We already heard all the rumors and all this stuff. The Lord's with you. We heard all about it already. You got it. You got it, fam. We all right. We're going to live over here. You know what I'm saying? You can have this. We going to live over here. Oh, you say you want this city, Jerusalem? You can have it. Oh, lose, whatever, you can have it. Make it Bethel. Make it Jerusalem. Make Jerusalem yours. Make Bethel yours. We're going to go over here. Because we understand. Some of the nations understood that and said, we don't want no problems. Y'all got beards, boots, and braids in our lobby. We good. We don't want them waiting for us. All right, we good. We'll be over here. Judges chapter 2. Judges chapter 2 verse 1. And an angel of the Most High came up from Gilgal to Bochum. So now, if you guys don't know, Gilgal and Bochum, that's an area in Israel. I want to say that's the Jerusalem area. I want to say Gilgal is the Jerusalem area. I want to say that's what it is. It's the Jericho. It's the Jericho in the west of Jordan, the Jericho area, where we held camp at, where we were encamped at with Joshua and things like that. So that Gilgal to Bochum, that's what it was, the Jericho and Jordan area. And said, I made you to go up out of Egypt, and I have brought you unto the land which I swear unto your fathers, and I said I will never break my covenant with you. So now an angel came up from Gilgal and Bochum and said, I made you to go up out of Egypt, meaning I made you leave Egypt and go out of Egypt, and I brought you into the land which I swear unto your fathers, meaning now I brought you to the land that I promised to your fathers, that I swear to your fathers. Salaki. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you. And the Lord said that I will never break my covenant with you. Like, this is going to be my covenant with you. I will never say, you know what, you're no longer my people. You know what I'm saying? I didn't say, I'm not going to do that, right? Unless you provoke me to jealousy, right? The Lord didn't just say, oh, like, it's not, when the Lord says, I'll never break my covenant with you, meaning the Lord was always in agreement. The Lord was always in agreement. We are the ones that broke the covenant. The Lord didn't, it's not like we were keeping all the laws, statutes, and commandments, and the Lord said, all right, I'm out. Y'all got it. We good. That would be the Lord breaking the covenant, right? It didn't happen that way. We broke the covenant and said, I want to have sex with whores and prostitutes and eat pork, shrimp, and lobster and follow these other nations. That's when we broke the covenant and the Lord was like, all right, y'all got it. Go ahead, I'm good. Y'all gonna break the covenant? You good. Go ahead. You all right. I'm going to show you why you shouldn't. Verse 2. And ye shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. Meaning y'all should not make no leagues, no agreements, no covenants with the people within this land. Ye shall throw down their altars. Meaning whatever God that they serve, and whatever altar that they have to serve these other gods that they serve, you are to throw down their altars. But ye have not obeyed my voice. Why have ye done this? So now remember, the Lord is saying this. Why is the Lord saying this? Because we just read in Judges chapter 1 how almost half of Israel did not drive out these other nations that the Lord ordered us to do so. Like the Lord ordered us since Deuteronomy, since Moses, to come into the land of Canaan and drive these other nations out. Like they need a new place to stay. Y'all need to go back to the land where y'all at. But the land of Canaan, this is our land. You need to bounce. And this was supposed to become Israel. And we're supposed to drive these nations out. The Lord gave an order since Deuteronomy to Moses, then to Joshua, and then now we're at Judah and Simeon. Like this order is given to drive out these other nations. But the tribe of Naphtali didn't do it. Asher didn't do it. Benjamin didn't do it. Joseph did do it. Asher didn't do it. Like almost 70% of Israel did not follow the Lord's instructions. Ephraim didn't do it. Did not follow the Lord's instructions to drive out these other nations. So the Lord is saying, and you shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. You shall throw down their altars. But, meaning rather, ye have not obeyed my voice. Y'all didn't do that. If y'all threw down their altars, they would have to make new altars somewhere else. But they still have their altars up and running in the land that I gave you. Why have ye done this? The Lord is asking, why have you not obeyed my voice? Why have you not driven these people out? Verse 3, wherefore I also said, I will not drive them out from before you. Right? But they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their God shall be a snare unto you. And the Lord is saying, wherefore I also said, I will not drive them out from before you. Meaning, if you did not drive them out, I'm not going to do them, but they shall be as thorns in your sides. Right? And their God shall be, and their gods shall be a snare unto you. Meaning, there's going to be a thorn in your side. Meaning, they're going to be a problem for you. And their God shall be a snare unto you. Meaning, the gods that they serve shall be a trap for you. Because you did not obey my voice, since Moses, since Joshua, to drive these nations out of the land of Canaan, so this land could be yours. So there's no other nations among you, so you can be absolutely separate, so you can serve me, so there should be no thorns in your side, so there should be no snares. But because you did not drive these other nations out, because Asher didn't drive these nations out, because Benjamin didn't drive these nations out, and the Canaanites and Zebulites are still there, and Naphtali didn't drive them out, and Ephraim didn't drive them out, right? Naphtali didn't drive them out. 70% of Israel did not drive out these other nations the way the Lord ordered us to do so. And because of so, now they're going to be thorns in our sides, and their gods shall be snares unto us. The Lord said this in Deuteronomy. The Lord was saying this to Moses, and Moses told all of Israel that this is what we were ordered to drive these nations out. Verse 4. And it came to pass, when the angel of the Most High spake these words unto all the children of Israel, like this is the angel of the Most High. So this is the angel coming, speaking in the name of the Lord to all of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept. The reason why all of Israel wept, because we were like, oh man, because we already know what happens when we don't listen to the Lord. Problems come. You understand? That problems come when we don't serve the Lord. Problems come when we don't obey the Most High. So they wept. They wept. They're like, oh, like, you know, that was it. They already knew problems are coming. Because the Lord could not, because now they're remembering, oh man, Moses did say that this is coming from the Lord, and if we don't drive these other nations out, they're going to be a thorn in our side, and their gods are going to be traps. Like this was spoken since Moses in the wilderness, before we came into the land of Canaan. This was also talked about in Joshua. That's why we even came here, and we went to war and went into battles, into so many fights just to get some of these cities, right? We were supposed to drive these nations out. Like, for instance, Bethel. Before it was Bethel, it was Luz. It was Luz. And Luz didn't even fight. The people of Luz, I believe it was the Jebusites or the Hivites. It was either Jebusites, Hivites, or the Canaanites. We just got finished reading. I want to say it was the Jebusites that were living in Luz, and they said they didn't even fight. They said, "Hey, yo, y'all got it. We're gonna go over here. Y'all can have Bethel. Y'all can make Luz into Bethel. We're gonna make a new city. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna call it Luz over here. We good. We seen what y'all were capable of. We seen what was going on. This is your land." Like, some of the nations got it. So the Lord is like, why would you do this? Like, I was with you. Why are you keeping these other nations? Well, let's continue reading and find out. Verse 5. And they called the name of that place Bochum, and that they sacrificed unto the Most High. So they sacrificed unto the Most High in the Bochum area, which is the Jericho and Jordan area. Verse 6. And when Joshua had let the people go, the children of Israel went every man unto his inheritance to possess the land. So when Joshua had let the people go, right, meaning when Joshua left, when he passed away, whatever the case may be, each of the tribes went into their proper places, into the possession and inheritance that they were supposed to go to. Verse 7. And the people served the Most High all the days of Joshua. So now this is talking about within the time when Joshua is now alive. All right. So like when Joshua, because in Judges chapter 1 is explaining when Joshua was dead, how he went to war after war after war. Now this is talking about when Joshua was alive, how we served the Lord when Joshua was alive. So don't be confused. It's still kind of in order. All right. And the people served the Most High all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great works of the Most High that he did for Israel. So all the people that served the Most High during the days of Joshua, they were able to see all that the Lord did for them. That's all it's saying. So they were able to see all the things that the Lord did for the children of Israel, and how we came to the land of Canaan, and we possessed the land of Canaan. It became our inheritance, and each of us were in our proper part that the Lord promised us since our forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Alright, verse 8. And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Most High, died, being 110 years old. So Joshua died at 110 years old. Verse 9. And they buried him in the border of his inheritance at Tifnatheres, in the mount of Ephraim, on the north side of the hill of Gaash. So this was the area where Joshua was buried at. Verse 10. And also that generation were gathered unto their fathers, and there arose another generation, and also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers. So that generation, they were gathered to their fathers. And there arose another generation after them. So then there came a generation after them. Alright? Which knew not the Most High. So they did not know the Most High, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. So they didn't know the Most High. They didn't know the Lord the way we knew the Lord. Pretty much. Like, put it this way. They didn't know the Most High the way the previous generation knew the Most High. Like, the generation previous before them knew about going to war and fighting and battling, and how the Lord took us out of Egypt, and we were in the wilderness, and Moses and John, think about it. It's almost like, you gotta think about how some of our old heads are now. Like, you never lived in my day. I remember how this was this, and this was that, and this was going on. You don't even know. You living in a different time. You don't know about this life. Think about that way. Like, this is what's going on. Like, we knew the Lord. We knew the Lord in the wilderness. We seen some of the things that the Lord did. You know what I'm saying? We seen the Lord swallow up niggas. Excuse my language, but we seen, like, it's things like that. Like, we seen the Lord swallow up some brothers. This is a different generation. So they didn't know the Lord the way we knew the Lord. Like, we seen the Lord swallow up people. We seen the Lord put priests to death for not doing the right thing. Like, we seen the Lord get angry with us and all. Like, this is a whole new generation. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't know the Lord the way they knew the Lord. Not saying that we didn't know of the Most High, the Lord, but it was more so like, whatever the case may be. Sterling Cox is the so-called white man welcome here. No, the so-called white man is not welcomed in the Israelite School Universal Practical Knowledge. There's no need for our oppressor to be welcomed here, because he has so many other places he can be welcomed to. But our race of people and our nation of people are not welcomed everywhere like these other nations of people are. So this is a school and a body and a place where all blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans are welcomed and not be murdered and not be killed, not be raped and not be molested, not being thrown in prison. And this is a place of peace where they can learn how to be Israelites again and to be their culture again, and to live happily and live in peace and safety and just to live in a better environment and to establish a better environment for the rest of our people. Is that racist? If you want to call it racist, you can. If you want to, that's entirely up to you, brother. Is that racist? That's entirely up to you. If you want to call that racist, I wouldn't call it racist. That's just me personally. For the time being, I wouldn't call it racist. Slack. But Khan, I wouldn't call it racist. Not at all. Slack it. Yeah, I wouldn't call it racist at all. Not at the moment. All we're doing is coming to a place where we wouldn't be murdered. Why would that be racist? I want to dwell in a place where I'm not being hunted and killed every day. Why would that be racist? How is discriminating against an entire race not racist? Where's the discrimination? Where's the discrimination? They're just not welcomed here. I'm not going to invite murderous people into a place where we're trying to keep murderers out. You don't understand that, Sterling. You're not realizing what needs to be done to fix the Black, Hispanic, and Native American community, Sterling. All right. So I'm gonna continue reading for the class' sake. But how is discriminating against an entire race not racist? You're not realizing what needs to be done to protect the Black, Hispanic, and Native American people. All right. It says you can't be raped on or murdered, hunted, or killed on YouTube. This is a class. We're not just on YouTube. This is a class where you can actually come to. All right. This is not just about YouTube. All right. Nothing's just not about the internet. Stay on YouTube and continue watching our classes and actually learn from what's being and learn from what's really going on, Sterling. All right, Sterling Fox. You want to actually focus and understand and see what the hell is actually going on back here. All right. It's not just YouTube. This is not just some internet thing. These brothers back here that you see teaching Monday through Sunday, we're in our actual classroom with other brothers and sisters asking questions. And we're also on the street. And we're also doing food programs and giving and making sure our people are properly clothed and fed. You understand? Doing food drives. Like, we're doing all of these things. So it's not just a YouTube thing. So yes. So when I say you can't be raped and murdered and hunted, listen. These other nations of people are not welcomed here for our safety, because we've seen what happens when we invite other races and nations of people amongst our people. We do get molested and raped and murdered. Dylan Roof went into an all-black church in South Carolina and murdered grandmothers and aunties and uncles and fathers and mothers. If we followed the Lord and not welcomed other nations of people in our congregation and welcomed other people into our vicinity, those people will still be alive. But that's enough on that, Sterling Cox. Just focus on coming to class and becoming and learning how to be an Israelite. That's all. That's all, Sterling. Anything else? Chop it up as whatever you want to chop it up as. I don't have the time. All right? I don't have the time. Not I. But you can also go to other YouTube accounts and ask them questions. I'm sure they'll answer it. But if you have a serious question about the Bible, all right, and you truly want to learn, ask those questions. But don't ask crazy, idiotic questions like why other nations are not welcome. All right, welcome other nations in your house, and tell me how it goes. All right. Second thought, don't tell me. I don't care. Just come to class. Verse 10. And also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers, and there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Most High, and yet the works which he had done for Israel. Verse 11. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Most High, and served Baalim. So now, there's a generation that didn't see what happens when you don't serve the Lord. You know what I'm saying? So now you have a generation of Israelites that are like, we don't know the Lord the way these old heads know the Lord. So now we go ahead and start serving. We now we doing the evil on the side of the Most High and serve Baalim. This is the problem. We're supposed to learn from the brothers and the sisters that came before us. Like, they knew the Most High the way they knew the Most High. Swallowing up brothers from the ground, taking down a priest right in front of them. You know what I'm saying? The Lord putting brothers and sisters to death because we not serving them. Took us out of Egypt, how they destroyed Egypt. Like, we've seen what the Lord was capable of. You know what I'm saying? Think about it. We were in the wilderness for like 40 plus years after we left Egypt, right? Think about it. Imagine like you a kid, 5 or 10 years old. You're about, let's say you 10 years old, and you're leaving Egypt with your father and your mother, and you've seen what the Lord at 10 years old did to Egypt, and now you're in the wilderness, and you're growing up in the wilderness. Now you're 20. That's 10 years of you being in the wilderness. Oh man, okay. You 25 years old, you see the Lord take down some brothers, you know, for going against Moses. So you 25, 30 years old, you're like, yep, I ain't gonna do that. You seen that? You got a whole family now, and you're like, yep. Y'all seen that, right? Y'all seen what happened? Keep your mouths closed and serve the Lord and listen to the man in charge. Now another 20 years go by, you might be, 50 or 55. Now you've seen the Lord put some priests to death because because the priest didn't light the right incense in the temple. So now you're like, you see that? You see what happened? The Lord is not messing around. The Lord is not messing around. And then at like, you 50, 55. Now, in our eyes, this is like an old man. But back in the day, we were living to 110 to 120 years old. So that's still young to us back in the day. So 55, you 60 years old, and you listen to Moses, and you see a whole bunch of thunder and lightning, and you're like, oh snap, this is crazy. Like, you wilding. Like, this is some wild stuff. We need to listen to the Lord. The Lord is not playing. All right, and now you, like, let's say another 20 years go by, you 65, 70, 75, and then you see, and then now Moses is talking about how you're about to go into the land of Canaan, you're about to go to war and all these other things. So so think about it, generation after this is not, think about the time span of us coming to the land of Canaan. Brothers that are like Joshua was 110 years old. He died in the land of Canaan, or the land of Israel, I should say, at that time, at 110 years old. Meaning, Joshua lived in Egypt. Y'all get my point? Like, Joshua was in Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Joshua was old enough to be in Egypt. And imagine other brothers being younger than him, 10 years old. Still, Joshua may have been a grown man in Egypt. Now imagine other brothers and sisters being like 10 or 12 years old, or maybe 5 or 6, witnessing things that the Lord is doing, swallowing up brothers and things like that, and, putting brothers to death for not serving him. And then Moses talking to the children of Israel, listen, we got to obey God because this is what's going to happen. And now we're in the land of our forefathers, and the next generation after us don't know the Lord the way we know the Lord. So they're brand new to stuff. They're thinking they can do whatever they want. And now, because they think they can do whatever they want, they start serving another god called Baal. Now the generation before them is like, oh man, we already, they already wept because we didn't take all the other nations out the land already. Now the next generation is assigned to serve other gods. Now all hell is gonna break loose. Let's go to verse 12. It says, okay, when the King James read Leviticus 25 verse 44, it says, ye shall bury your slaves from the heathen nations that surround you. How is that moral? Okay, let's go to Leviticus real quick. I'll answer your question. So you got a question on Leviticus chapter 25 verse 44. Let's see what it says. Leviticus chapter 25 verse 44. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids which thou shalt have shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids. Okay, let's go to verse. Okay, so it says, so your question is, ye shall buy your slaves from the heathen nations that surround you. How is that moral? Okay, I believe I went over this before. Alright, when you are alright, I went over this before. Let's jump up to verse 42. For they are my servants, which I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as bondmen. Verse 43. They shall not rule over him with rigor, but shall fear the Most High. Verse 44. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids. Verse 45. Moreover, of the children of the strangers that do sojourn among you, of them shall ye buy, and of their families that are with you, which they begat in the land, they shall be your possession. So now, this is what you have to understand. The other nations of people on the earth are going to be in a servile position to the Israelites. This is not slavery the way you think slavery is. I want you to understand, Sterling, how our oppressor put us into slavery and stole us from out of our land and robbed us from out of our cities and our towns and put us on transatlantic slave ships and then brought us to a country that we did not know and murdered us and raped us and molested us. understand, and made us work day and night with barely any food and barely any water. That's not what's happening here, right? That's not what's happening here. So take that type of image and not put it here. So you're asking, how is that moral? How would you buy a bond? It says, both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids which thou shalt have shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Meaning the bondmen and the bondwomen, meaning the people. When we come into the land of Israel, the people, that they're going to be in a servile position to the Israelites. Be of the heathen that are round about you, of them ye shall buy bondmen and bondmaids, meaning of them you shall make servants out of them. Alright? We didn't steal them. We didn't rob them or rape them or molest them. We didn't take them across the water. We didn't separate them from their families. We didn't buck their fathers. We didn't lynch any of them. Alright? This is not the white man's slavery, y'all. Alright? But let's go back to the lesson. Alright? So the question is, how is that moral? Alright? There's morality and everything in the Bible. Alright? The Lord chose the Israelites to be the superior class to rule over the earth. The Lord made a decision to make the Israelites the power and the authority over all the land. So that's moral to the Most High, because that was his decision. It wasn't ours. It was the Lord's decision to do that. He said, I chose you to be above all people over all the earth. We didn't make that decision. The Lord did. Alright, so anyone else, we were supposed to be above them. They're going to be the second class citizens. They're going to serve us. That's how the Lord intended to be. That's just that. Alright? If you're not okay with it, oh well. Not my problem. Take it up with the Lord. Alright? Not my problem at all. If you have a problem with that, well, join the servants. And sing hymns with them when Christ returns. Alright? Alright, shoot, if you are a Sterling, if you're a Black, Hispanic, Native American, if you don't want to serve the Lord, that's fine. Go ahead and be with the heathen and, sing Kumbaya with them when Christ returns. Me, on the other hand, I'm going to go with the ruling class of people and not be second class citizens, because I was tired of being second class citizens in America. That's just me. Do what you do out. Alright? Do what you do. But preaching obviously Rosh Hashanah, I'm going to make a wise decision. Alright? I'm going to make a wise decision, and I'm going to be with the Lord. So lock it. Alright, Judges chapter 2 verse 12. And they forsook the Most High power of their fathers. So they went against the Lord, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods, and the gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord to anger. So the new generation of people, right? So the new generation of brothers and sisters, the new generation of Israelites that didn't know the Lord the way the previous generation knew the Lord, they bowed themselves to the other gods of the people in the nation. Now, if we drove out these other nations the way the Lord ordered us to drive them out, we would have never bowed ourselves to these other gods. We would have never bowed ourselves and served these other gods and idols. We would have never forsook the Lord, and we would have never provoked the Lord to anger. We would have never done any of this if we drove out these other nations out of the land of Canaan like the Lord ordered us to. But because we didn't, here's the thorn in our side. Here's the other gods being a snare to us. Here you go. It's right here in the book. Verse 13. And forsook the Lord and served Baal and Ashtaroth. Now Baal and Ashtaroth, these are just gods of the Canaanite culture. Alright, so these are gods of the Canaanite culture. Verse 14. And the anger of the Most High was hot against Israel. Now this is how you know this is a black man's book. This is how you know this is a Latino man's book. This is how you know this is a Hispanic man's book. The Lord said, And the anger of the Most High was hot against Israel. The Lord was hot. Alright, the Lord was hot, Aqua. Listen, I don't know about y'all, but I remember back in the day when I was a kid, when my parents said they were hot, oh, that was it. That was my tale. Oh man, when they say I was heated with y'all, I'm hot. Ooh, you just made me hot, boy. That's it. I was gone. I said, ooh, I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm sorry, Mama. I didn't mean to do any of that. I'm putting pillows down my pants, even though they're gonna get taken off and whipped with a switch or something, or with an extension cord, whatever the case may be. Not saying it's okay for any brother and sister to whip their kids with extension cords and switches and none of that. I'm not saying that, but back in my day, we was whipped with extension cords and switches, things that were not belts. All right, it was not okay. But when Mama was hot, or when Daddy was hot, that's what happened. Most of the times when Mama was hot, she grabbed the extension cord or the switch or whatever the case may be. When Daddy was hot, Daddy actually just took the leather off, because Daddy had more sense than Mama not to beat us to a pulp. Now, it says verse 14, and the anger of the Most High was hot against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of spoilers that spoiled them. Now, does anybody know? So it says, now the Lord was hot with Israel, meaning he was angry with us. He was absolutely upset with us. And he delivered them into the hands of spoilers. Now, what are the hands of spoilers? Does anybody know what spoilers are? Now, does anybody know what a spoil is? A spoil, if you look at the definition of spoil, is something that you get after a battle or a war. Like a treasure or some type of rich or some type of treasure, whatever the case may be, after war. So it says, after the hands of spoilers, that spoiled them. Meaning after a war, after we've been beat up and battled against, right? He delivered them into the hands of spoilers, meaning the Lord delivered us into the hand of our enemies. Alright? The hands of spoilers, that spoiled them. And he sold them into the hands of their enemies round about. So now the Lord is explaining who these spoilers are. These spoilers are our enemies. So because now this is in the book of Judges, because we serve the God of the gods of the Canaanites, because we serve Baal, and because we serve Ashtaroth, so the Lord sold us unto our enemies around about us. So who are our enemies around about us? Our enemies were the other nations of people that we did not drive out. And also of the nations around about, like your Moabites and things like that. And your Canaanites and your Jebusites and your Hittites that we did not drive out the land. So that they could not any longer stand before their enemies. So now, so that they could not any longer stand before their enemies. That we can't even stand before our enemies now. So now we have no power in our hands to stand against our enemies. Before we came into the land of Canaan, and while we were in the land of Canaan, when we were serving the Lord, and we were going to war after war after war, battle after battle after battle, fight after fight after fight, we were able to stand against our enemies. But because we did not serve the Lord, and we decided to serve other gods, which is against the God's laws, statutes, and commandments, right? Now we can't even stand against our enemies. Verse 15, whithersoever they went out, the hand of the Most High was against them for evil. So the Lord was against them for evil. Right? It's because of the evil that we done. Right? As the Most High has said, and as the Lord has sworn unto them, and they were greatly distressed. Like the Lord was trying to warn us, this is what was going to happen if you did not serve me. If you did not keep my laws, statutes, and commandments. If you did not keep the laws that I gave to your forefathers, who I gave to the children of Israel, that I gave to Moses to give to you to keep, this is what was going to happen to you. Now you're distressed. Now you're weeping, you're in sorrow, you're in pain, and you're suffering. The Lord was trying to explain to us and show us why we need to serve him. Verse 16. Judges chapter 2 verse 16. All right. Nevertheless, the Most High raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them. So now the Lord raised up judges, right? Now the Lord raised up judges, right, which delivered them out of their hand. All right. So like it, out of the hand of those that spoiled them. So now here's the reason why the Lord raised up judges. Now does anybody know what a judge would be? Does anybody know what a judge would be? So, okay, we have to know what a judge would be, right? So now the Lord, okay, so it says, nevertheless the Lord raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand, those that spoiled them. So now a judge, depending on the context, a judge is usually a brother or a man that's there to guide you, well, to pretty much, okay, it's usually, a judge is someone that usually delivers a punishment, all right? That's usually what a judge is, depending on the context. Then you have judges to pretty much to govern the people. Sometimes the purpose of a judge is to govern the people and to condemn the people and explain to the people of what they did wrong. And this is the punishments and the reason why we're going through these type of punishments and things like that. Someone that usually gives the law or tells people about the law. In context, that's usually a man. All right. Now, the reason why I also want to read Judges because eventually we're going to get into Deborah or Deborah, and I'm going to break that whole thing down, which was a great, beautiful sister that did a very beautiful thing for the nation of Israel. You know what I'm saying? But let's continue reading. Which delivered them out of the hand of them, of those that spoiled them. Verse 17. And yet they would not hearken unto their judges. Yet the children of Israel would not listen to the judges that the Lord raised up. But they went a whoring after other gods. So the Israelites still went a whoring after other gods. And bowed themselves unto them. And still served these other gods. They turned quickly out of the way which their fathers walked in, obeying the commandments of the Most High, but they did not so. So they did completely opposite and contrary to the generation previous before them. The generation before them, they were serving the Lord, they were serving the Most High, keeping the commandments, because they literally seen what the Lord was capable of. Right? Now the generation before them is was probably explaining to them, hey, serve the Most High, serve God, because this is what's going to happen. And the next generation, like, man, what you talking about? You know, think about it. We in a land, we're in our own land, in our own city. We finally, we're no longer second-class citizens. We're no longer slaves in Egypt. So we got the nerve to look up the next generation, like, talking about serve the Lord. I can't do this. What do you mean he gonna swallow us up? Man, you don't know what you're talking about. No one got swallowed up in no ground. No 30 men got put to death like that. You talking about the Lord smited someone right in front of y'all? Come on. Are you kidding me? Oh man, you don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? Now we know because we want to serve other gods, now we know what the other generation was talking about. Oh, so this is what you were talking about. Now we don't have before we were we were on top in our land and we were living good. We were no longer second class citizens and we were the authority and the power of the land. Right? Now we're not. Now we're in a total different type of position. Verse 18. And when the Most High raised them up, judges, and the Lord was with the judge, and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge, for it repented the Most High because of their groaning by reason of them that oppressed them and vexed them. So now when the Lord raised up judges, then the Lord was with the judge. So the Lord is now with the judge and delivered them out of their land of their enemies. So now the Lord delivered them. Because now they were groaning, they were being oppressed and vexed them. So they finally realized we need to come back to serve the Lord. This ain't it. You know, now we understand what the previous generation was talking about. We can't do this again. I ain't trying to live through this again. Verse 19, and it came to pass when the judge was dead, right? So now remember, now the judge is dead, right? That they returned and corrupted themselves more than their fathers. So now the judge went away because the judge, at the time, the judge was ruling with an iron fist. The judge was like, this is what's going to happen, right? While I'm alive, y'all going to serve the Lord. And y'all going to keep his laws, statutes, and commandments. And you're not going to serve other gods. I just delivered you out of the hand of your enemies. All right? You're going to keep his commandments. This is what y'all going to do. And if not, some of y'all going to have to get put to death, whatever the case may be. But when the judge died, so when the judge is dead, Israel's like, okay, well, he gone now. Ain't no one ruling with an iron fist. Now we good. We're going to go back to our old ways. That they returned and corrupted themselves more than their fathers, and following other gods to serve them, and to bow down unto them. They ceased not from their own doings, nor from their stubborn way. So now they just went back to serving other gods and just not obeying the Lord. We were smoking weed, getting high, eating pork, eating shrimp, eating lobster, you know what I'm saying? Doing all kind of abominable things, having, being okay and accepting with homosexuality, lesbianism. We were just serving other gods, getting into voodoo, talking to the dead, being okay with charmers and enchanters and things like that, witches. You know what I'm saying? We weren't listening to the Most High. We were following the gods of the Canaanites and serving their gods instead of serving the power that brought us into this land. Verse 21. I also will not henceforth drive out. So the Lord said, like in verse 20, and the anger of the Most High was hot against Israel. So now the Lord was hot, still hot. And he said, because that this people have transgressed my covenant, which I commanded their fathers, and have not hearkened unto my voice. So now, because the Israelites did not follow God's laws, statutes, and commandments, and did not keep the covenant that I kept with their fathers, verse 21, I will not henceforth drive out any from before them of the nations which Joshua left when he died. So now the Lord said, because y'all don't want to keep my laws, statutes, commandments, I will definitely not drive out these other nations that live among you. I will not drive them out. But this is what I will do. Verse 22, that through them, meaning through these other nations, I may prove Israel. So guess what? I'm not going to drive them out. But I'm going to keep them here. And I'm going to keep them here so you can prove. So I can prove. So you all can prove to me. Right? So you can prove to the Most High that through them I may prove Israel, whether they will keep the way of the Most High to walk therein, as their fathers did keep it or not. So now the Lord said, you know what? I'm gonna keep these other nations here so I can prove y'all. Right? So I can prove y'all. Meaning the Lord wants us to prove to him that we're going to serve him, even though there's other nations among us and there's other gods for us to serve. The Lord's going to make us prove ourselves worthy. You understand? The Lord said he's going to make us prove ourselves. So now those other nations are there so we can prove to the Lord, even though the Christian church is there, even though the Catholic church is there, even though Egyptology is there, even though Islam is there, even though pornography is here, even though there's whores on the internet, even though there's prostitutes there, even though there's sluts over there, even though there's some homos over there, even though there's some lesbians over there, even though there's some orgies over there happening, even though there's some enchanters over there, even though there's some weed over here, even though there's some coke and crack over here, even though there's some witches over here, even though some drug dealers over here, you know what? Even though all these abominable things are here, even though there's a Piggly Wiggly over there selling pork bacon and all this other stuff, even though there's all these abominable stuff is all around us, right? There's so many abominable things that we can do to sin against the Lord. The Lord wants us not to do them and prove ourselves, right? And to prove ourselves that we can serve the Lord even though we can serve Him even though there's so much sin around us. You understand? The Lord wants us to prove ourselves that we can still keep His laws, statutes, commandments, even though there's so much sin for us to do. Because if we can do it here, we can do it when there's no sin around. Does everybody get that? Does everybody understand? If we can do it here, if we can serve the Lord in America, where there's homosexuality, where there's lesbianism, where there's drug dealers and there's crack right around the corner, there's a blunt right there, there's prostitutes there, there's sluts over there, there's whores over there, there's pork right there, the Christian church is right there. All this is all around us, right? All of this is around us. It's all right here, right? It's all right here. If we can serve the Lord here and not participate in any of those things, then we can definitely do it in the kingdom. We can definitely do it in a land where there will be no sin tolerated. You understand? Verse 23. Therefore, the Most High left those nations without driving them out hastily, neither delivered He them into the hand of Joshua. So neither did the Lord deliver them out of the hand of Joshua. The Lord kept them there from that point on. Oh, you want to serve other gods? These can stay here. Prove to me that you're worth to have a land that's all to you and no other nations among you. All right. Any other questions? All right. With that, I say Ahmadiyim, which means to stand. Men of Israel, we're going to give a courteous salute to the brothers. Men of Israel, Ahmadiyim Shabbat, Ahmadiyim, Barak, Yahweh Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shara Bakatham, Yanim Matah, Sa'al Wafi. Let me turn to the sisters. Men of Israel, we're going to give a courteous salute to the sisters. Men of Israel, Ahmadiyim Shabbat, Ahmadiyim, Barak, Yahweh Shamar Alathan Ba'ashim Yahweh Shara. Yanim Matah. With that, class dismissed.